This video is on finding the volume of prisms and cylinders, which are types of prisms. Just as a quick review, prisms have a top and a bottom, two bases. This rectangular prism has a top rectangle and a bottom rectangle. This triangular prism has a top and bottom triangle. And this circular prism or cylinder has a top and bottom circle. Pyramids have one base and a point, and a sphere is shaped like a ball or a globe. On prisms and pyramids, we can count the amount of faces, edges, and vertices. The formula for finding the volume of any prism is big BH. Big B stands for the area of the base. This prism has two rectangular bases depending on which side you sit it on, and the other one is identical to it. Both of these rectangular bases are 3x5s. 3x5 this way, 3x5 this way. So big B stands for the area of the base. First thing we have to do is find the area of the base. It's a rectangle. You find the area of a rectangle by multiplying the length times the width. Length times width on this one is 15. 5 times 3 is 15. Once you find the area of the base, the difference between volume and area is there's a third dimension, height or depth of the prism. So we find the area of the rectangular base, 3 times 5 is 15, and then we multiply it by 10, which is the height or depth of the prism. 15 times 10 is 150. Area is two-dimensional. 5 times 3, 2 dimensions. You would put your answer as 15 inches square if we were finding the area. Volume is three-dimensional. It's a third dimension, so our answer is to the third power, or cubed, inches cubed or cubic inches. Let's look at number 5. Number 5 has a square base, which is a type of rectangle. So the first thing we would do is find the area of our base, 3 times 3, which is 9. And then we take the area of the base, 9, and multiply it by the third dimension, the height or depth of the prism, which is the distance between the two square bases. In this case, it's 5. 9 times 5 is 45. Your answer is 45 cubic inches. Now, you could just take your calculator and say length times width times height, 3 times 3 times 5. But I want you to understand that it's the area of the base, which is 9, times the height or depth of the prism, which is 5, because there will be other problems we have to know that and use that on. You try this one. Here's our rectangular prism. It gives us the 3 dimensions. Plug them into the formula right here and see what answer you get. On a rectangular prism, it really doesn't matter which one of these 6 faces you decide is the base. So you could say your base is 5 times 4.2, or you could say your base is 4.2 times 3, or you could say one of these sides is your base, which is 3 times 5. It really doesn't matter. Since in this picture it's sitting on the rectangle, which is 3 times 4.2, then I would probably say that is my base, but it really doesn't matter because you can multiply in any order you want. So the area of the base, in this case, is 3 times 4.2, which is 12.6. Then you multiply 12.6 times 5, and you get 63. The volume is 63 cubic centimeters. How much work you show is up to you, but please understand, even if you just multiply length times width times height in your calculator really quick, that's fine, but understand it's the area of the base times the height or depth of the prism, because later we have to know that. Try guided practice number 1. Find the volume of a rectangular prism with a length of 10 feet, a width of 13 feet, and a height of 21 feet. It's as simple as multiplying the 3 numbers it gives you together. Length times width times height. You could just put all 3 in a calculator, but I do want you to understand that length times width gives you the base. I chose to use 10 and 13 as my base. On rectangular prisms, it really doesn't matter, but when we get into other kind of prisms, we'll start seeing the difference. Either way, when you multiply the 3 numbers together, you get 2,730 cubic feet. Number 2, last rectangular prism for today. Find the volume of this rectangular prism. Again, on rectangular prisms, it does not matter which one you plug in for length, width, or height, as long as you multiply the three numbers together. I chose 16 and 8 as my base to get an area of 128, and I multiplied it by the height or depth of my prism of 25. If you mix the three numbers up and did it different, that is fine. You'll get the exact same answer as long as you get 3,200 cubic centimeters. Now let's look at one where it does matter. Now we're going to find the volume of a triangular prism. So now I have to use the two triangles as my bases. 7 is the height or depth of my prism. It is the distance between the two triangular bases. So I have to use 2 and 6 as my length and width, or as my base and height of the triangle. The formula is the same, big BH. Big B stands for the area of the base, but this time my base is half the length times the width, or half the base times the height. So to find the area of one of these triangles is half times 2 times 6, or half times 6 times 2. I could say half of 6 is 3, 3 times 2 is 6, or I could say half of 2 is 1, 1 times 6 is 6. But the area of your triangular base is 6 square centimeters. Now I have to multiply it by the height or depth of the prism, the distance between the two triangles, 7, to get my answer, which is 42 cubic centimeters. Now it matters that we understand what is the base. The bases are the two triangles, and the base and height of the triangles, or the length and width of the triangles, are 2 and 6. We do have to understand on this one that 7 is the distance between the two triangular bases. It is the height and depth of the prism. It is what goes in for H. Let's look at one more example. This one may be a little harder to see because I drew it, but I have triangular bases, and the distance between those two triangular bases is 6. So the 6 is the height or depth of my prism, which I have to multiply. I have to plug in for this H right here. Big B, the area of my base. My base is a triangle, so it's half the length times the width of the triangle, or half the base times the height of the triangle. Now you can get these two mixed up. It does not matter which one of these you decide is the base and which one's the height. 4 is the base and 2 is the height. But if you mix them up, it doesn't matter, because it doesn't matter what order you multiply in. What does matter is, you know, that 6 is the distance between the two triangular bases, so that is the height of the prism. So I find the area of the triangle, half the base times the height. Half of 4 is 2, 2 times 2 is 4. Then I multiply it by 6, which is the height or the depth of my prism, and I get my answer, which is 24 cubic units. Find the area of the triangular base using the area of a triangle formula, and multiply it by the height of the prism, which is the distance between the two triangular bases, in this case 6. Try this one. Find the area of this triangular prism. Note that the base and the height of the triangle is 2 and 5. The distance between the two triangles, which is the height or depth of the prism, is 3. When I plug in the base and height of my triangle, I use 2 and 5. Doesn't matter whether you say 5 times 2 or 2 times 5, either one is 10. And since it's a triangle, it's half the base times the height. So I could say half of 2 is 1, 1 times 5 is 5. Or I could say half of 5 is 2 and a half, 2 and a half times 2 is 5. What does matter is that you know that 3 is the distance between the two triangular bases. It's the height or depth of my prism. So the area, the triangular area of my base, is 5 square inches. The volume of the entire prism is 15 cubic inches. Try this one. Find the volume of this triangular prism. I have triangular bases. The base and height of this triangle is 6 and 3. The base is 6, the height is 3. The height of the prism, the distance between the two triangular bases, is 10. So when I plug in to find the area of my triangular base, I use 6 and 3. Half of 6 is 3. 3 times 3 is 9. Then I multiply it by the height or depth of my prism, the distance between the two triangular bases, and my answer is 90 cubic yards. I want to show you a few more examples. On number 1 here, it breaks everything into little blocks. So if I'm looking at this square on the end, it is 3 millimeters by 3 millimeters, and it shows 3 times 3 is 9. You could count, I have 9 blocks there. If I counted this side, 4 times 3 is 12, and you can see there are 4 blocks. And 3 times 3 times 4 is 36. And if we counted all the blocks that are stacked up, there would be 36 total blocks. Area is two-dimensional. 3 times 3 is 9, 9 squares. 3 times 3 times 4, the 3 dimensions, would give me 36. And if we took all those blocks apart, there would be 36 total blocks. And here is what that one looks like on paper. 3 times 3 times 4 is 36. Number 3, we have a cube. This one is easy to do in your head. When you multiply tens, you just add a 0. So 10 times 10 is 100. And 100 times 10, add another 0, I get 1,000. I could just say one of those edges or one of those sides cubed. 10 cubed is 1,000. Or if you wrote it out on paper and did the volume formula, it would look like this. Try number 4 here and see if you have a full understanding of the prism formula. A pentagonal prism has a base area of 10 square inches and a height of 3 inches. Find the volume. The volume formula is written for you. See if you can get the answer to number 4. Number 4 is easier than most we do because it gives us big B. It says the base area is 10 square inches. I know that's my base area because it gives me unit square and because it tells me that's my base area. So we just plug 10 in for big B, and then we multiply it by the height or depth of the prism. 10 times 3 is 30. The answer is 30 cubic inches. It's much easier to do when it just gives you the base area. You don't even have to figure out big B. You don't have to know a formula for big B. You just plug in for big B. Big B is the area of the base area. Try number 5. A cylinder, which is a circular prism, has a base area of 20 square inches and a height of 2 inches. Find the volume. Like number 4, number 5 is very easy because it tells you the base area is 20. You plug it in for big B. It tells you the height is 2. You plug it in for height. 20 times 2 gives you your volume, which is 40 cubic inches. When it gives you the base area, just plug it in for big B. Now let's find the volume of a cylinder where it does not tell you the base area. You have to figure it out for yourself. Big B is the area of the base. On a circle, to find the area of a circular base, the formula is pi r squared. So to find the area of a base, it's pi r squared. To find the volume, it's pi r squared times h, because big B becomes pi r squared, and you still have to multiply it by the height or depth of the prism. So looking at this example here, it gives us a radius of 3 and a height or depth of my prism of 12. So I plug in 3 for my radius and 12 for the height or depth of the prism. And again, big B was the area of my base. It broke down to pi r squared because I had a circular base. Then I multiply it by h, which is the height of the prism. 3 is my radius of my circular base. 12 is the height of the prism. Now, order of operations come into play here. We have to do 3 squared first and get 9. You have to do exponents before you multiply. So the first thing you have to do is say 3 squared is 9. Then, and I'm going to show more work when I work them out, but in this book, it just multiplied 9 times 12 times pi and got the answer. And you can do that. You can put 9 times 12 times pi in your calculator as long as you do the exponent first. Look at example B. The picture gives the diameter of the circle all the way across, which is 14. The formula is radius of a circle. So we have to cut that 14 in half to find the radius of 7. 7 squared is 49. 49 times 20 times pi is 3,078.8 cubic centimeters. Go ahead and try 1A right here. Find the volume of that cylinder. So it tells us the radius is 6.1 and it tells us the height or depth of the prism is 12. I'm going to plug them into the formula and I'll try to show more work than the book did. So this was the first one of these we did. Don't worry about it if you didn't get it, but we do need to understand the radius, R, is 6.1. The height of the prism is 12. Order of operations say you have to square that radius first. If you have a calculator, scientific calculator, you can just put 6.1 squared equals, and it'll give you 37.21. If you don't have a scientific calculator, it's 6.1 times 6.1. Now I can multiply 37.21 times pi to get the area of the base, which is what I did. No, it's not what I did. I multiplied 12 times 37.21 to get a number and then multiplied that number times pi to get my answer. You could have multiplied 37.21 times pi to get the area of the base and then multiplied it by 12, or you could have just multiplied these three numbers together, 37.21 times pi times 12, and go straight to the answer. It's fine. If you don't have to know the area of the base, you don't have to multiply those together first. Once you're in multiplication, you can multiply those three numbers in any order you want. What matters for order of operations is that you square the radius before you multiply those three numbers together. Let's try one with some easier numbers. Try number 1. Number 1 gives you a radius of 2 and a height of the prism of 2. So 2 and 2 are the two numbers I'm going to plug in. So we take the radius of 2 and we plug it in right here for radius. We take the height of 2 and we plug it in right here for height. You have to square this radius first and get 4, and then it's 4 times pi times 2. I chose to say 4 times 2 first because I could do that in my head and write 8, and then 8 times pi I put in my calculator and got about 25.1 cubic feet. Your answer here will vary depending on whether you use 3.14 for pi or whether you use the pi button. If you use the pi button, your answer will be slightly larger than if you use 3.14, which is pi rounded. The bigger the coefficient in front of the pi, the more difference in your answer. Try number 6. Find the volume of that cylinder or circular prism. The radius is 4. The height of the prism is 3. So in the formula, I plug 4 in from a radius, 3 in from a height. You have to square the radius first to get 16. 16 times pi would give me my area of my circle, area of my base. You can multiply in any order you want. I try to do as much as I can in my head, so 3 times 16 is 48, and 48 times pi is about 150.8 cubic feet. It'll be a little higher if you use the pi button. Also, you may see an answer on a multiple choice test one day that says 48 pi instead of them actually multiplying the two numbers together. Or over here, the answer on the test may say 8 pi instead of 25.1. So know that it could be either way, but the best way is to go ahead and multiply the coefficient times pi to get your answer. Last one, try number 8. On number 8, it gives us the diameter all the way across. Or does it give us the radius? Let me see. Okay, that one confused me for a minute. It gives us the diameter all the way across, which is 4, but when it pointed to the diameter here, this point almost looked like maybe it was telling me that the radius between here and here is 4. But the diameter is 4, so we have to cut that in half and get a radius of 2. My radius is going to be 2, and the height of the prism is going to be 7. So if we're finding the volume of a cylinder where the diameter is 4, we have to use 2 for the radius. If it's 4 all the way across the circle, it's 2 halfway across. And the height is 7. 2 squared is 4. You can multiply 4 times pi times 7 in your calculator, or any order you want to multiply those three numbers together. I like to say 7 times 4 is 28 pi. and then multiply times pi, as long as your answer is right around 88 cubic inches. We're not going to do any of these on this video, but I do want to point out right quick, if you have a complex figure, such as this one, this is 2 rectangular prisms. I would find the volume of this rectangular prism, the volume of this rectangular prism that goes from here to here, and add them together. Here I would take this triangle prism plus this triangle prism plus this rectangular prism and add those 3 volumes together. Here I would get the volume of the rectangle prism plus the volume of the triangle prism and add them together. And here I would get the volume of this rectangular prism and the volume of this circular prism or cylinder and add the 2 volumes together. In real life, it doesn't turn out so easy where you just have one prism. If you're actually trying to figure a job, and when you're building houses or laying carpet or laying hardwood or countertop, or in this case, making cakes, and you need to know the volume, you have to be able to do complex figures where you have to get the volume of 2 different ones and add them together. Or in the case of laying a carpet or hardwood, get the area of multiple figures and add them together so that you can figure your job correctly. Thank you.